very much, Mr. Chairman, for your kind introduction. Sorry to the public that I do not use PowerPoint. I was traveling through India over the last 2 weeks, participating in a number of gatherings. So it's always good to get first acquainted with the audience in order to come back on the subject you have given me. Multi-stakeholder partnerships for ensuring public and private investment in information communication technology for development. First, let me congratulate you for publishing such an important report. It reminds me a little bit about the success story we have seen presented a few years ago in Finland, how the whole economy was changed through IT industries. But it's an amazing document full of information, and you can be sure that the whole world is interested in reading that report, especially also the members of the Global Knowledge Partnership, which is a membership organization of 110 institutions across the globe using and promoting information communication technology for development. Now, very often when we speak about ICTs for development, we immediately think we deal with internet, computers. But let's not forget, for hundreds of millions of people, it's still an issue to get access to radio, to get access to phones. So we have to encompass these various instruments, these various tools, because ICTs are tools and not an end in itself, but amazing tools offering a lot of opportunities. The reason why we have set in 2003 ICT for development high on the political agenda at the UN World Information Society Summit gathering is simply that we do not talk what is better is bread, or I don't know what other basic needs better than IT or ICTs. This is a wrong question. IT is an enabler in development, and half of development has to do with knowledge. And IT gives tremendous chances to have access to that knowledge, to manage knowledge, but also to manage for that knowledge. So I think connectivity and energy are key. Governments should facilitate the basic IT, physical infrastructure through adequate policies and or public investments. Or it has to be clear, if the private sector is doing that the policy must be set so that the country as a whole is covered and not just urban areas. But I am still wondering why so few countries do use the existing credit facilities of the World Bank, of the regional development banks, to have access to this blended lending, soft terms, 20 years, 0.5% of interest, grace period 15 years. It's not used to develop the physical infrastructure. And either we fail in doing adequate coaching or just in doing adequate collaboration within governments. I give you an example I ran into a couple of years ago in the north of Cameroon. There is a district really in the bushes, about 200,000 people living. So the telecom provider, a French company in Cameroon, said, look, we cannot cover the northern part. And I said, yeah, but it's extremely important to have access to health facilities and others. They said, no, it doesn't pay off, because such a few people who can afford access to telephone, why should we set the antenna? Then I said, yeah, what is the cost for the antenna? They told me $250,000. Then I said, is there no other way to bring a solution, a kind of a private-public partnership? No, and we are not interested in, because the market is too small. They will never invest $250,000. Okay, and then I say, yeah, but I see all those antennas. They told me, yeah, that's military. Then I said, so I go to see the generals, whether they can give us one of those antennas to set up a small part for the mobile phones. And after long discussions, they did. And at the end, we paid from a public investment $40,000. In a couple of months later, the whole coverage was done, and those poor people had access to mobile phones and access. They could afford to pay those prepaid cards, and they had access to health supply services. So it shows, this is a very simple example, that on one side, private-public combination or partnerships are important. Coming back to the energy, here I think technologies are available. The question is whether we can do it at affordable prices, and whether we can go for decentralized supplies. I just saw recently, a couple of weeks ago, in a trade and aid fair in Geneva, $120 foldable solar panels supplying the energy to computers and others. So there are so many solutions out there, or the reinventing of the hand winding type of energy resource, or the pedaling generators and things like that. It all can help to bring electricity, or the effects of electricity, to the villages. But let's not forget, we still have 1.6 billion people not access to electricity around the globe. That is, by the way, also a reason why we started with day3 Institute, the Energy Research Institute of Tata. With Mr. Pachauri, we launched last week that study on energy, a global study on energy and poverty, energy poverty, and energy for the poor, to find out what will be the drivers for change, to change indeed the infrastructure, but in better challenging the needs. Now I come back to the major part of the theme, and that is multi-stakeholder partnerships approach for achieving results. We all heard and hear across the globe applauses for the approach, because it became obvious governments alone cannot bring the solution, they cannot deliver. Maybe private sector alone can also not cover all what the market can offer, and NGOs, they also cannot provide, or sometimes they are themselves an obstacle to scaling up of certain projects, simply because their foremost occupation is their own survival. We need those NGOs, but we need to couple resources, human resources, financial resources, knowledge, in order to achieve those scaling ups we are so badly in need. So the multi-stakeholder approach, I experienced it since a couple of years at the World Economic Forum in Davos, is very much applauded. But still, when it comes to apply, to get engaged, that you can only create those win-win partnerships when the partners among themselves do have a minimum set of mutual trust, and when the beneficiaries are the guiding force of bringing those different stakeholders around the table.